What would you say are some of your highlights that like top of mind? You've got the wall behind you, but looking back on your career progression so far, what would you say are some of your big wins?
I mean, yesterday I featured on Forbes. I mean, you look at today, we signed UFC as a client today.
Ross Jenkins is a seasoned digital marketer with the experience and skills necessary to elevate businesses to the major leagues. Ross implements the latest marketing technologies, streamlines sales processes, and optimizes data analysis. Currently, Ross is the CEO of DigitalME, a marketing agency dedicated to helping businesses of all sizes achieve their goals through strategic planning and execution. So could you tell me, I'll just jump in. Could you tell me a little bit about what you do as a guest contributor for Entrepreneur Media?
Yeah, so I did a lot of marketing, sort of more performance marketing articles for them. Honestly, it was something that I never really thought I would get the opportunity to do. So when I got it, I was like, damn, I want to submit 10 articles a month. The realistic thing is that they're very, very, very strict. I think we submitted 40 articles in total. But it's an amazing opportunity. And, there's nothing I can really say about it bad. It's just such a cool thing to be able to do.
What would you say are some of your highlights that top of mind? You've got the wall behind you, but looking back on your career progression so far, what would you say are some of your big wins?
I mean, yesterday I featured on Forbes. So, that's pretty cool.
That'll do.
If you look at the progression, I think I've made over $150 million, if not more, for some of our clients. That's in the space of 5 years. I've made $2 million on Upwork. Bear in mind, when I started Upwork, no one believed freelancing existed. They just thought it was what you do in between jobs. When you say that you're working, that was what people thought. And now a lot of people want to be freelancers and just can't be because they don't have that drive inside of them, I guess. Obviously I've written for Upwork, I've written for Entrepreneur, I've written for Active Campaign, I've written for loads of places. But to be able to kind of help other people learn more about performance marketing is a pretty cool thing to be able to do.
What is performance marketing?
Sure. So obviously you hear about marketing all the time and you hear people say, I go in brand meetings with clients all the time and they're like, we spend 50 million a year. And I'm like, okay, so what does that result in? Oh, we don't really know because it just, it's just marketing. Well, surely you have some sort of data to say, if I'm going to put $50 million in, it's going to come back, $150 million or $100 million. And they're like, well, we just do it because we know it's getting to the right people. Whereas performance marketing, let's say you invest $20,000 today. You want to email your past client list. You've owned a traditional shop for the past 15 years. You've got a great list. You've never emailed it, but you've got a whole lot of clients that love you and adore you. Now, we do an email to that. Your budget's $15,000. Honestly, depending on what your product is and depending on how good your relationship is, you're going to get a huge amount more than what you've put in. And I'm going to be able to track it. I'm going to be able to see every single person who's spent with you, every single person who's clicked with you. I'm going to be able to give you that data and say, you've put $10,000 in. This is what you've got back out. It's marketing that shows it's got attributions. It shows where the sources are coming from. And it's not just, hey, give me $50 million and I'll hope that, you might actually see some sales. And I think that's kind of where it helps massively because, a lot of the businesses we talk to, you look at today, we signed UFC as a client today. And the reason we were able to do that is because we were able to show past results in terms of case studies. Bear in mind, they're not giving me their entire database. They give me a tiny, tiny, tiny database. But it's still a dream client I've always wanted to work for. And it works because I showed them case studies of this is how much clients normally invest. This is normally how it works. Obviously, it really depends on the product that you've got, the company you've got, 100 different variables. But I think your product is decent. I think we'll be able to pitch it to these people. And this is the route that I would take.
Yeah, that's amazing. It sounds like it might be a bit of a test case too, like filling each other out. I'm sure if you deliver like you can, they'll probably open up a little bit more of their portfolio to you.
That's what I want, realistically, because we've got them on Active Campaign where we get a huge amount of money back. They're paying the full price of Active Campaign and I get a huge amount of money back. So they are technically paying us quite well. But obviously, if they put their whole database, which is probably 50 million people in, yeah, I might be able to buy a yacht, but let's see.
What makes a client the perfect fit for you?
Okay, so I actually have a lot of red flags. I've been screwed over by clients left, right, and center. The reason I actually became a freelancer is because my final boss actually scammed me $75,000. So I was like, damn, I wasn't looking for a freelancing platform. I was actually looking for an escrow platform because I knew I could market it. I knew I'd be okay, but the perfect client doesn't try and negotiate on price, understands how much my value is, doesn't want things done tomorrow. I get a lot of people who will message me and say, hey, Ross, I've just bought this database from blah, blah, blah. I've got some rubbish crypto that I want to sell. I think tomorrow it'd be worth $1 million, just stupid stuff like that. I play by the rules. I play by the rules of, just being a decent human, I think. If you value me, I value you. One thing I fire a lot of clients for in the past is, obviously I demand a high amount of money, and normally you don't treat me badly. But what I've seen is people treat other staff members badly. For instance, I was working with a guy who just sold the WeWork for like $12 million. Cool company, nice company. But I looked at how he was treating his staff. Honestly, it was disgusting, like verbally disgusting. And he said something to me, and I said, you're not going to speak to me like that. I just don't want to work for you anymore. So today, final day, I'll work for you, and you can go find someone else. And he was like, oh, it's just, I'm in a bad mood, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and you're going to put every other person in a bad mood. And thankfully, I don't rely on you. Your money's great, but I don't need it. Where the people who work for you, they do need it. They rely on you. And you treating them disgustingly doesn't fill me with confidence that you're a decent human being.
There's, sorry to interject really quickly, just you touched on long-term versus short-term strategies that I think a lot of us might lose sight of. And sometimes you need that hard kind of rejection, if you will, to kind of hit home in order to inspire a change of behavior. A lot of times it just, we don't know. We don't realize until someone tells us, this is not okay. This is not an option on the table to behave in this way. It's like, oh, I get it. But sometimes it does take that initial parting of the ways, I think.
Yeah, and you see it a lot. You see it in the news as well.
Right.
Like Ellen DeGeneres. You see that in the news. And
what I'm starting to create kind of not to overfit a model or anything, but I think generally what I found, tell me if you've seen the same thing, people that are overly virtuous, like saying they really care about a cause, or standing up and saying like, oh, Ross, like you shouldn't do that. Like you're a bad person for thinking that. Usually have like a skeleton, like just overflowing skeletons in their closet. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's something you find more and more. And honestly, people like that, you find that they've screwed people over left, right, and center. And the reason that you build your own internal red flags is so you can cut those people out as quickly as possible. I've been on Upwork for 5 years now, and we found some weird scenarios. We used to have a woman who we were making great results for. She used to do animation videos way before her time, before like people were doing them all over. And they were great, really high quality. And she was making great sales through our marketing. But every Wednesday, she was Australian, every Wednesday, I'd get a skew of messages, just abuse, and like full-blown abuse. But this would happen every Wednesday. And then I'd be like, that's not okay. Like the first time, obviously you're like...
The Wednesday purge.
Yeah, like the first day you're like, damn, how do I deal with this? And then like the week later, when it happened again, I was like, all right, okay, yeah, I think we'll cut this one off, and you'll find someone else. It's about cutting them off quickly, because they ruin your mental health, and that's what this is about. You become a freelancer to have a better work-life balance, obviously earn more money, maybe be able to work more flexible. It's not to be treated badly,
It's interesting how we categorize information. Like we define things and then think of it like in a different category. And what I mean is, like, just to give a couple examples, social media consumption, for example. I was talking to this gentleman from the UN who I asked him, because he's a diplomat, and like, what do you think about the binary nature of these algorithms and the division that we're seeing on like a global kind of relational level? And he said, David, I really wish I'd see people exercise a little more restraint. And it's funny because I was the one asking the question, but I didn't even consider that as an option, that you would not sit down and eat a bowl full of sugar. that you would exercise restraint with your consumption. And similar to your point, I think we should make decisions with the people we surround ourselves with to an extent, the same way we might make decisions in the food that we would eat. Like if I'm going to run a marathon, maybe I'm not going to eat a whole bunch of junk food like right before, and to have some agency and the choices, setting boundaries, etc., to the people in your network or the people that you engage with, because that becomes your biome, like your kind of culture. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and I remember you speaking about this before. I just wish people understood how the other person or the other person would see you. You see something like Facebook Memories, and you see how you spoke 10 years ago, and you see how you spoke now, and it's obviously a completely different way because you've matured. But one thing that I think you can't ever get back, obviously, if you're posting statuses on Facebook about song lyrics, that's not hurting anyone. But if you're abusing people or being rude to your staff or stuff like that, that is affecting other people, and that's affecting the way that they're, especially an employee, for instance, that affects that whole world because they rely solely on you.
Yeah. So lead from the top, lead by example. I like that. So you went the route where you get to kind of call the shots, and you're aware of the people you want to work with and the behavior that you want to promote. It is interesting to hear, though, that even with high-paying clients, I mean, like you mentioned, some celebrities sometimes fall into this. But I've found the opposite also, that sometimes like the lowest paying clients can undervalue the efforts. So I don't know if there's like a magic kind of equation there, but just basically letting your standards be known and upholding them.
Yeah. So what I normally found was when I was a lower hourly wage, I was getting a lot more abuse. Whereas when I got higher up, you get less abuse, but you see other people being abused by that person. And you're like, after the first one or two clients, you're like, there has to be something that's kind of said about it. And it sucks, man, because, I came into freelancing 5 years ago and I want it to be successful. I want people to realize that, that this seat here, if it was in an office, you're paying for the insurance, you're paying for a computer, you're paying for maintenance, you're paying for, retirement fund, you're paying for this. Hiring a freelancer for X amount of hours per week or a flexible basis is so much more affordable. Even if you look at, I remember we spoke about this in the past in terms of hiring top talent. For instance, if you're trying to hire someone like me in Los Angeles, right, it's going to cost you, let's say, $400,000, maybe $500,000 a year. So that's all in price. Now, are they going to need to work on your startup 40, 50, 60 hours per week? Probably not, because you probably have not enough content or not enough things going on. It's impossible for you to have that much going on. Whereas you can hire someone like me for, let's say, underdraft my insurance, that's your all-in fee, and you can just pick and choose when you need me. Or I could say, hey, listen, David, we should be doing an email for newsletter this week. Here's how we work. Freelancing has evolved so much, and I think that, one thing that does need to evolve is the way people treat freelancers everywhere, really.
Yeah, I wonder if a rebrand is necessary or just like an update of the existing model. If you look at the term recruiter, that has changed into like talent acquisition, which has like a little element of prestige to it. I'm assuming it's a very similar function. It's just a rebrand of the title. So I wonder, like, if freelance, if something about the word free or just the connotation of freelancers in the past, like basically all getting grouped together. So it's difficult to have like some standard, like, oh, they're a freelancer. Like that's someone who's, but you mentioned you're on the cover of Forbes, some of your clients, your experience, you have a lot of experience and expertise to provide your clients. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Like, because when you look at Upwork, for example, there's a wide gamut of the talent that you might find on there. And I'm actually surprised at the caliber that's on there. Do you think that's a problem, or do you think just more communication needs to go out to people to understand that you can find elite talent everywhere?
Yeah, so I think, I've said this to Upwork directly, so I have no problem saying it here. I think Upwork's education system is pretty corrupt. I think it's, for one, I visit America a lot. My girlfriend's American, so I go there a lot. And I remember when I first went to America with her maybe 5 years ago, and one thing I heard on the radio from Upwork was hire American talent, the best talent you can find. And I was like, God damn, like,
well, you were there.
Yeah, I was there, and I was like, damn, man, like, you're educating people that Americans are the best talent, and Americans are the same talent as every other country. There isn't anything in your DNA that changes the way that you are in that sense. And I spoke to them in depth about this, saying, Ukrainians have amazing designers. Filipinos have amazing assistants because they're really caring. They're extremely good with numbers. They're good at timekeeping. There's talent from all over the world. You should be educating Americans and other countries on that they could say, hey, you could hire talent from here or here or here. I think Upwork has to do a better education system in terms of how they're educating their advertising. I think they need to be stricter with clients in the way that people are. Because ultimately, there's amazing talent in terms of clients from Upwork, as well as talent from freelancers. Obviously, I just pulled through a UFC partner today. And I've also done someone who ran for US president this run and the last run from Upwork. So there's amazing clients, there's amazing talent. Obviously, there's bad eggs and everything. And, it'd be nice if they weeded them out harder. But the reality is money's money. And I guess sometimes, when a client's paying hundreds of thousands of dollars and they really say, you treat some of our talent bad, it sucks because business is business, I understand. But, I wish Upwork was stricter and said, you don't speak to.
There's a rating system where you can each rate each other. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's tricky, man, because you think about your life, right? You've got a reputation. And realistically, your reputation isn't visible. But if it was, and people could see your reputation, as you walk around, they'd see how rude you are or this or that. That's how Upwork is, because every client you have to satisfy. You can't take on someone who you can't satisfy, because you get one negative feedback,
that's
you
really
go
good
all
point.
the way down. And so that's why I'm so red flags. If you hit any red flag, we're not going to work together. And no matter how much money you've got behind you, we're just not going to work together. And it sucks because sometimes I get offers and I'm like, I would like to work for you, and you're throwing money at me, and I'm grateful for it. But realistically, I don't want to work.